So when you're shooting live action, you've got to get that great performance, and you've got to stamp the entire image with all the lighting and all the production design and all the extras and all the other stuff onto that sensor or that piece of film, complete, more or less, right? Camera moves and everything else. Well, the attraction for me with performance capture is I do all that later. The actors aren't even around. They're on another movie.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, Jake, Sully, Neytiri, and their family must deal with adversaries both old and new in director James Cameron's science fiction epic, Avatar: Fire and Ash. The third installment of the Avatar franchise continues the story of Jake and Neytiri's family unit as they encounter a new, aggressive Na'vi tribe, the Ash People, led by the fiery Varang. When Varang forms an alliance with Jake's nemesis, Colonel Quaritch, the conflict on Pandora escalates, and a new moral focus emerges. In addition to Avatar: Fire and Ash, Cameron's other directorial credits include Avatar: The Way of Water, The Terminator, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, and True Lies, as well as the documentary features Ghosts of the Abyss and Aliens of the Deep. He was nominated for the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Feature Film for his 2009 film, Avatar, and won in the same category for his 1997 film, Titanic. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Cameron spoke with director Guillermo del Toro about filming Avatar: Fire and Ash. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. You can take your 3D glasses off now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming today. And, we can start by saying that we've been friends for almost 40 years or so.
Oh my God, don't even go there.
Yeah.
91.
91 we met, yeah. And shortly thereafter, very shortly thereafter, a few years later, you started working on Avatar.
Yeah, it was in 95.
95.
And it was because, we met when I was doing post on Terminator 2. And that was my second film that used CG, kind of soft, fluid animation, facial animation, and so on. And I started to kind of see where things were going. So I started Digital Domain, which was the first all-digital VFX company. And then I wanted to write something that would push them to the next level of character creation and creature creation and all that. So then I wrote a treatment for this little thing called Avatar in 95.
And we're still at it.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah. The beauty of it, from the beginning, you had the idea of making it a transporting event. Like it was not just rendering a story, it was going to be experiential in a way.
So I started Digital Domain with Stan Winston. You guys remember Stan Winston, right? The famous makeup prosthetics guy, famous character creator. And our goal when we started that company was to create characters. He loved makeup. He loved foam rubber appliance makeup and prosthetics and all that. But he also wanted to use these new tools to create characters, to do things that makeup couldn't do. Like obviously the Na'vi characters have big eyes. It's really hard to get actors to agree to, the injections to make their eyes bigger. It's in the contract, but, so Stan knew there were possibilities there, and he and I got together and founded this company. And then a couple of years into it, I thought, we're not moving fast enough. We should be moving faster, and I thought, what about a grand provocation? What about something that really gets the company to step up to a higher level? Because as we all know, the fastest strides in innovation happen in a production environment because you got a deadline. and you just got to show up with the stuff, right? So, but they convinced me at Digital Domain that it was premature, that there were too many steps that had to be gone through first before we could create an entire world with every blade of grass and every leaf on the tree in CG, and then put all the characters in it in CG and have it photoreal. Yeah. They said it basically I was insane. And but 10 years later, in 2005, I wasn't quite so crazy, and it looked like maybe we could get there, but it was that idea of it being fully experiential, which is, I think, a great term for it.
Yeah, there's several things on that or to that. One of the things we bonded immediately about is that we both were either very experienced, very exploited, or very versed in so many techniques that were analog.
Yeah.
We talked about traveling mats, rotoscope.
Everything.
You've done it. You've done everything. Miniatures, matte glass painting, and
you sculpt, you paint, you draw.
Yeah.
You draw everything on your films, and I know you'd love to get your hands on the sculpting if you could, and because when I first met you, you had been a makeup and prosthetics designer
and optical effects and all that, and I actually you're a great artist. I have one of your paintings because you lost one of my notebooks.
I lost a Guillermo del Toro notebook,
and he gave me an alien painting.
Lose it. Somebody ripped it off, but it's the same principle. You have to guard something with your life.
But
it'll show up on eBay, buddy.
I don't think so. But the beauty of that is, I think that when somebody wants to push the technology, they have to know the technology.
Yes.
And I think that you can only push it if there is a goal to it.
Yeah.
Right? And
the key thing, a lot of people have been asking me about, because I started the press sort of junket this morning. A lot of people have been asking about the technology, and I say about this film, and I say it's kind of the wrong question, because you were saying, we were backstage, and you were saying, well, it must be old hat to you now, and it is. To me, it's just a process. It's like a camera. It's like anything else. I don't think they'd ask, Chloe Zhao what camera, what lens, what technology she used to shoot Hamnet. To me, it's like that. The things that are important to me are, as a writer-director, how did the actors interpret these characters? I spent 18 months with the cast on this film and The Way of Water, because it was all done together in performance capture. And, it's like workshopping. It's like workshopping a script. It's like theater rehearsal in a way. It's a very free form, very fluid kind of process. Like on a live action film, you rehearse the whole movie if you can ahead of time for a week or 2 weeks if you're lucky, whatever, so that you can move fast on the day. But it's kind of the opposite in performance capture. We'll do a table read and all that ahead of time so everybody can be preparing the character in their minds. But when we come into capture, we do the rehearsal then. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 2 hours, maybe it's 3 hours, whatever it is,
But this is the DGA, and I can tell you, if somebody said to me, "You're going to have to direct that movie, or we will shoot your family," I will ask them to start alphabetically. I would try to look for the door. And what I was talking about today, about you, knowing you for so many decades now, there is Jim, the problem solver, the engineer, the tech designer, and I've seen you on design tech when we were developing Fantastic Voyage. I know just how precise that is, and all of that. And I said, all that is in service of Jim the artist and the storyteller. And I think that's important to say. This is not, what you found with this technology is my own appreciation. Actually, you've become more loose.
Yeah. I think you're onto something with that. And by the way, thank you for that. So I think it's fair to ask, what a director with 30 years in live action, why would I be attracted to a performance capture with CG characters? All right. So the answer is not obvious. It's not just about being a tech guy and being in love with the innovation, right? It's as a writer director and thinking about these characters so much and so deeply, it's this weird thing that happens, which is we completely bifurcate the normal film process into two sequential stages. So when you're shooting live action, you've got to get that great performance, and you've got to stamp the entire image with all the lighting and all the production design and all the extras and all the other stuff onto that sensor or that piece of film, complete, more or less, right? Camera moves and everything else. And I get, I love all that stuff. And it's hard for me. I'm not saying I can't do it. I've done live action. I did Titanic, right? But what I'm saying is it's distracting to be thinking about the sun's on the move, the shadow's going to be there. We've got to bring the fill around. I've got 15 more minutes before the thing is going to get shadowed. I'm behind. I'm down 2 set of blah, 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 blah. Thinking about the cameras and then explaining, where I want the first camera, second camera, what the move is relative to the script. So you hit the line, right? Well, the attraction for me with performance capture is I do all that later. The actors aren't even around. They're on another movie, right? I'm imagining, it's like a quantum theory kind of thing. It's like I'm imagining an uncollapsed superposition where the camera could be there or it could be there. And I don't have to worry about it right now because the observer comes along later. Right now, all I care about is the human truth of the performances. Yeah. So I take my performance brain, my writer brain, my storytelling brain, and I give 100% of that to the actors. Then I give 100% of my geek techno brain to the cinematography, the camera moves, and all of the downstream processes. So it's kind of great, actually.
And I think that all this for me through the years, the beauty of it is in service of a moment or an emotion. I remember one of the things that you do is distract from the trick and focus on the moment. I remember when Robert Patrick crosses the bars and he divides and is CG, but the gun
flows through,
but the gun doesn't.
Right.
That's storytelling.
Yeah.
That's saying there is a material thing there, not because he's going through. If he only goes through, it's a CG shot or effects or something. Right. But if the gun doesn't go through, those bars are real. Yeah. And I think that is remarkable for me to see how you aim for effect, aim for emotional effect with all these things, and working with your actors, especially in the third movie, which is my favorite of the three.
Oh, thank you.
Emotionally and where it goes. But this depends more than ever on now the relationships are mature. Yeah. Some of them are falling apart. Some of them are being built, crisscrossing each other. It has to be on the actors.
Yeah, exactly. And, the advantage for me with this film was that for the most part, with most of the cast, I'd worked together with them before, so Sam and Zoe are my rocks, right? They're the core. And then, so they fall in love in the first film, and it feels like it's such a profound love that nothing could tear it apart. And then we see it slowly disintegrating. And can they fight their way back? I guess I'm counting a lot on people having invested in these characters. And then we introduce obviously new characters like Varang and the Wind Traders. And I'm super proud of Una for what she created in the Varang character. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a discovery for me. I thought she was cool on the page, but I had no idea what Una was going to create. But it's definitely all about, it starts to me with performance, and then all the other stuff gets layered on. Now I'm like you, I love design. I know you think in your color palette, you draw everything out. You're very, very design oriented, and so am I. I don't draw as much as I used to because I've surrounded myself with great designers. You do that.
Same with me.
You do that as well, and I love the design process and the world building and all that. And I think almost in a way, it's a disservice to the actors in a sense because it tends to take the focus. That's why I think I did more close-ups in this film than I normally do. I've been of a mind, I think, probably since Titanic, that you pick your close-ups carefully, and you don't. If everything's a close-up, nothing's a close-up. It loses power. So I know that you do wide field compositions. You like wide lenses. You give a lot of thought to your camera moves, and you use close-ups very sparingly. I'm of the same school, but I pushed in a little more on this film, just almost in a way to put the world into the background a little bit. Let it be there when we need it, when it's a character, and then push it away.
Now, the thing with the Avatar movies, and I think is they're becoming your life, your biography and your filmography. blend the more time passes. I mean, your preoccupation with ecological, sustainable things, the farming you do, going to the deep depths of the ocean, trying to promote indigenous communities and this and that, all blends in the films. I mean, now the films and your own life mix, and partially too, I recognize very strong biographical elements with each movie. Yeah. I think it's extremely, these characters are family.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the big change for me between Titanic and the Avatar films was becoming a father, having teenage kids, as I was writing those films, and then also, playing back my own angsty teenage years and having my father issues and all that, and playing that out now from the other side of the the argument, so to speak, and feeling those dynamics with my son, with my son-in-law, and so on, and I also have daughters, and just writing that experience, because I felt like the more fantastic the world and the more bizarre the production design, the more you have to ground it in elements that are universally human, that people can relate to. Mm-hmm. And I figured, everybody's in a family, or maybe the occasional person who's been orphaned longs for a family, but family is a reality. It's part of our human framework, our human social framework. And sometimes it's a pain in the ass. Sometimes it's more about the found family or the family you create than the one that you're born into. But all of those dynamics and all of those dysfunctions and all of those strengths, I think ultimately the goal of this film was to show that the family is their greatest strength. It's their kind of their superpower, and they draw on that. And that Jake and Neytiri have actually done a pretty good job on these kids.
Yes.
Even though they maybe don't think so. And I think that that's a way to get audiences buying in any language, in any political or cultural scenario around the world, in any religion around the world,
But it's also, what is remarkable for me is each of the Avatar movies, and I know when you started to prepare the screenplays for as many as you needed, and we discussed it, and you said, I'm going to move part of the second to the third, and
split it apart
and all that. So I know the arc you have is long and very well planned, but they also reflect the period in which they're made. The first one was the individualist finding the possibility on the other. The second one is beginning of family, and this is certainly sort of disintegration.
Yes.
Exactly. It's not formed.
Families challenged, the relationships are challenged, all the bonds are challenged,
and the world,
and they're strengthened by those challenges. And the war has arrived, and Jake's dilemma is, okay, I used to be the guy that would jump off a creature in midair and fall onto another creature and tame it to get my girlfriend back. Basically, that's the plot of Avatar, right? And he wouldn't do that now. He wouldn't be that crazy go for broke, nothing to lose character, because now he's a father, and she's the warrior that was absolutely fearless, that would stand against the human advancing army solo with a bow and arrow. And she can't do that anymore because she's a mother, and so that's reflecting my feet of clay, as the guy that walks through the door. I'm not the big shot director then. I'm just dad.
But also the beautiful thing is the first two depend on a dichotomy, a yin and a yang, a race that is coming to destroy from another planet, another place, and the people that are native. Now, what I think is ripped from the headlines, the destruction's coming from within.
Yeah, exactly.
In the family and in the planet.
And within the Na'vi. So there was this sense, I think, across the first two films that the Na'vi culture, the Na'vi were very pure, they were very spiritual, and these bad humans were coming from Earth. Now we see that there are good human characters that fight on behalf of a certain set of values, and there are adversarial Na'vi characters that fight from a value system that we wouldn't agree with. Call them bad, call them evil, whatever you want to do. I don't look at it that way. They've been traumatized, hurt people, So they are the hurt people. And so they're taking out on everybody else, and hatred and violence, propagate in the endless spiral that the Tulkun talk about. And Locke, even says it when he says, the fire of hate brings only the ash of grief. But he doesn't complete the circle, which is from that grief comes the fury that drives the fire of hate. And that's Neytiri living that out. And Spider becomes the victim of that, maybe, and then that all has to resolve. So, it almost feels, in a way more timely now than it was when I wrote it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wish the world was improving as opposed to going the wrong direction. But all the environmental themes are as valid now as they were then. And I think some of the themes of our human propensity for violence and cruelty. But I also think that the hope that we should all have is also shown in the film, which is that there's empathy, there's understanding, there's the ability to see the other person. When Neytiri says she sees Spider, she sees a sky person as a whole person, as a heart, And to me, that's kind of, in a way, one of the thematic epiphanies of the film. Now they still got to go kill all those motherfuckers.
But there's also,
so empathy only goes so far, folks.
but I also find it beautiful, and I think this is a learning curve of you as a father in so many ways, that a lot of the hope is coming from the rebellion of the young. Right. In every one of the species.
Exactly. Yeah. Even the young Tulkun.
Yeah.
Payakan is the rogue who went against the Tulkun culture. So there I was trying to create something that's not even human in affect, is an alien body, this kind of whale-like armored creature, but give them, first of all, individual characters. So there's 3 Tulkun characters in the film. The matriarch, you just do what she says because she shakes the ocean when she talks. I would.
And through the years, I've seen you. We've seen each other, but I've seen you miraculously have to fight for things that you believe in. And people think, at that level, everything.
Oh no, it's always a fight.
It's
always a fight.
It never goes away.
It never goes away.
And I've seen you use florid language and determination.
This is
and
all
reason.
exaggerated.
No, but I remember very clearly one conversation in which it was being discussed, the amount of flying.
Oh, well, this is absolutely true. On the first Avatar film, for some reason, the studio executives felt that the film was too long, even though it's like 20 minutes shorter than this one. And they just wanted me to take out like the flying scenes. They said it's repetitious. We get it already. It doesn't advance a plot. I said, yeah, but it's beautiful. It's like, come on, guys. It's the most beautiful thing in the film. And man, they would not back off. And finally I said, that building you guys are in over there? Titanic paid for that. So I get this.
But I also remember one thing that is true of every Avatar movie and is in so many ways the secret sauce of the movies. They are contemplative and experiential. They actually force you to put away the modern world. No one is underwater TikToking. No one is experiencing the flying and doing a Facebook Live, or people have to put it down in the theater and surrender themselves.
Yeah, I've been talking about this a lot lately because obviously the theatrical experience is on the ropes. We're down a lot. We're not rebounding. We know that, sort of COVID kicked the door open and streaming ran through it, and we're not going back, folks. So the question is, what is still valuable in a theater? And I think so much has been made over the years, and you're a huge fan of the theatrical experience, and yes. I know you fought hard on Frankenstein to get it into a serious release, even though
it's still in theaters.
It's still in theaters, right? So we fought for that.
In theaters. Right? Consult Fandango, folks.
But a lot has been made over the years about, it's a big screen, it's beautiful sound, it's all those things you can't have at home, except you can now. And so what is really unique about the theatrical experience is that you select for it. You select for an engagement of your full consciousness into a piece of art, essentially, a piece of entertainment. You get up out of your house, you get some friends together, or however you do it, you pay for the parking, you go through all this stuff, you go into a theater, and there's no remote. You can't pause it. You can't decide, oh, I'm kind of tired, I'm going to finish it tomorrow night. You can't stop it to go to the bathroom or go order a pizza or whatever. It's an unbroken experience, and that's the one last bastion of the cinema, which is that it is truly experiential engagement, right? Yeah.
But one of the things that I believe in is that the two sizes that are important is the size of the screen and the size of the ideas, the size of the ambition. If you were talking about close-ups and delivering a wider, more immersive experience. So the way you deliver it, which is unique, I think, it's not action, it's experience, even from the early movies.
Yeah. Well, that's been the goal of the whole team. Creatively, we're trying to do something special, something that doesn't feel like other movies. I tell the team, this doesn't have to be logical. There's floating mountains. Guys, it's a dream. It's a dream state. We're asking people to come in and share a lucid dream with each other in a big dark room and just take them somewhere, right? And I think that the landscape, the design, that's part of it. The camera movement is part of it. The music's part of it. The characters. I mean, if you tonight believe that those people were real, even in your suspension of disbelief, then you're going to go on their journey and you're going to feel that mirror neuron, that empathetic response with them when those big Navi eyes well up with tears. I think we've got a little bit of an ace up our sleeve with just the physiognomy of our characters, because makeup can be additive, but you can't add to the size of the eyes and that expressive part of the upper face. So it's absolutely the actors laser scanned from here down. And that's very important, I think, for getting their speech and their expression and so on. And it's fully their expression in the upper face, but those eyes are volumetrically, they're 4 times the size of a human eye. So I think it just hits us deeper. I mean, there's some neuroscience on like pupil dilation. We become more engaged with people whose pupils are wider. I don't know if that means we're always, like more engaged with people that are stoned or whatever, but no, pupil dilation is a thing. And we talked a lot about this on the first film. Like I kept saying, they look like tweakers. Their pupils are tiny. It's like, make them bigger. And they were like, make them bigger. And then they started to be I started to have a more empathetic response to the characters. So that's part of character design. And you are all about character. You love character design.
But the way, I mean, we could
physical design. I mean,
anything that is expressive and is telling the story. But some of I will not lose much time in the tools, but the tools and the rigging of the mouth and the eyes and the construction of that has been remarkable leaps from one movie to the next.
Yeah, it was super important to me. So, like I said earlier, we did 2 and 3 together. So we did all the capture together, then all the live action together, and then we posted 2. And then we posted 3. So there was a big gap between the first film and the start of production was September 17 for capture on 2 and 3 together. So there's a big gap. I went on an expedition for a couple of years and went to the deepest spot in the planet and stuff like that, as you do.
I went to Encino.
Right? And then we spent 5 years developing that facial pipeline so that I never had to think about it again. Because on the first film, it was all a kind of kludged together prototype, and we spent a lot of time with animators trying to get back to what the actors had done. And I said, we're not going to play that game anymore. I want it automated. I don't want the animators interposing themselves into the actor's performance. And so we spent literally tons of millions of dollars on 5 years in R&D to solve that problem. And then I never thought about it again, because every time they showed me a shot or showed me an animation, or what they call motion, so that I could see the character, it was perfect. They just really came booming through in a wonderful way. In fact, I saw nuances in Una's performance in the way it came back through the facial pipeline that I hadn't noticed when I was working with her right, from 5 feet away, just little things that she did with her eyes. And I really came to appreciate like all that RADA training that she had. Man, she just nailed it.
Now,
oh, it's okay. Go ahead. Come on.
I like it. No, but there's also another component to something you do. I mean, you actively, and from the birth of CG, it was, I think, Barry Levinson, young Sherlock Holmes and The Abyss.
Right.
That basically started birthing that.
Yeah. First soft facial ever, yeah, right.
But you were always open, not closed. They were very collegiate. Yeah. About it from the start. You're very collegiate with this technology you've developed.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to see what we're doing and thinks they can apply it to a project, we're open. I'm unemployed, so I got plenty of time to share all that now. But you and I have always had this great sort of working relationship, bouncing scripts off each other, bouncing cuts off each other.
You come to the Sunday model painting kit day.
What?
You come to the model kit day on Sunday? And
he does this thing with Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams where they get together and make model kits. And I'm like, dude, I grew up making model kits.
You did a good Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Did I ever finish that Creature
no,
from
you
the
haven't
Black
finished.
Lagoon? Okay, I got to paint it.
You got to paint it.
I got to paint it. You don't qualify unless you paint your model, apparently. These guys are strict.
I make quesadillas.
Yeah.
but the collegiate nature of director to director and technologically, artistically is vital to this.
Artistically, especially, I think, look, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, you and I workshopped the Frankenstein script for like 2 days up at my ranch. You've come in and seen my early cuts going back all the way to True Lies, I think, right? And given me notes, but I'm talking about time code specific notes. Like really, I think you watched True Lies 2 or 3 times and maybe,
3.
Yeah. Huh?
No, remember our deal was before we give any opinion, we're going to watch it 3 times.
Yeah, right.
Which when Avatar 3 meant my whole day.
Yeah. Okay, so you're down one on Fire and Ash, but
no, but when I was about to close Frankenstein, an entire subplot came out because you told me.
Right.
And you were absolutely right.
It was a scene that you loved. I mean, Guillermo and I both have kind of father issues that we work out through our films but I did have a valid point and it changed your mind. But I mean, he lit up around it. It's like, oh, you're right. God damn it. I love that scene, but it's got to come out, and that is the service that we can provide for each other, which is a perspective, but it has to be an informed perspective based on having been around the periphery of the project and having talked about it from early on. And I don't think either one of us feel comfortable launching into a new movie without the other person having read the script and talked.
I think it's so rare. I remember when my kids came to see me shoot Hellboy, my daughter said, why are you in charge? All you say is cut and action. It's extremely hard to explain what a director does to anyone that is not able to shop talk.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. I mean, it's basically everything. It's a little bit of everything, but still giving everybody that feeds into that creative vortex their own props and their own empowerment, I think I'm starting to get decent at it, in terms of the leadership aspects of it. The creative aspects I had early on, the leadership aspects took a little more time for me.
Yeah, but I think that the textural direction of the characters, I think more and more, you've always been a superb writer of characters that are brisk and to the point, and they communicate who they are very fast. But curiously and beautifully for me, each of the characters, and especially with the 3 avatars, becomes more and more real, more and more every day. Meaning it's curious that you can enact the most family-oriented scenes in a world that you had to create from scratch.
Right.
in its totality.
Yeah. Well, that's been the goal, and I keep feeling it's like Zeno's paradox, you keep going halfway and halfway and halfway and you never get there. Right. But I think that, is what has been driving, the whole creative team is to just be better. It's a movie about family. Behind the scenes is the Avatar family, which is the cast and our troupe players who play a bunch of different characters as opposed to the principal cast that are named characters. And then we have, kind of our technical and creative and design group. And it's kind of all one big family at this point. We've been doing it for so long. I can imagine just keeping going with this because we kind of love and respect each other so much that it's actually a beautiful process. But on the other hand, I got other things I want to do too. So I got to figure, I figure I'm like, when like Wile E. Coyote goes off the cliff in a Roadrunner cartoon and there's a moment when he looks down, but he hasn't fallen yet. Yeah. That's this moment for me.
But I want to discuss a particular moment because it illustrates the point I'm trying to make. You create the most technologically and technically difficult movie one could ever imagine at this moment in time.
Yeah, if we did it on the moon, it would be the only way to do it, make it harder.
And I'll tell an anecdote about Fantastic Voyage after, but you do all this to reach the most delicately powerful, character-driven, quotidian, and harrowing moments in the entire filmography. And I am very, very taken by the Abraham Isaac moment in the film. Yeah. Is truly powerful without any, is all created, but there's no artifice. Yeah. And the pain of them.
Yeah. And the irony is that was one of our more difficult technical scenes because of the scale differential between Jack Champion and Jack's physical size and Jake as a 10-foot tall Na'vi guy, so the key there was to get the heart of the scene first, understand it, then deconstruct it in a way that we could recreate it and then make it real for Jack. Because Jack had to perform it twice, once when he was 13 years old with Sam Worthington, and then again, almost 2 years later when we got around to shooting him live action. So, but I think your point is that there's an intimacy and a sense of reality in the character moments, despite all the world building, right? And, to me, that's the goal too. People often ask me, well, when are you going to do something small and intimate? I said, well, I do on every one of these movies. I just don't just do that. Right. And so I'm satisfied when I can go into a live action scene, hand holding and just be in with the actors tight and hand holding the camera. There's nothing better for me. Nothing better. I love it. Right. And if I can go into a simple two-hander, like the scene where Jake Neytiri and Jake challenge each other about them being, an interracial marriage with mixed race children and all of the things. And it just devastates her. And then he tries to apologize and you see that she ain't buying the whole family is the fortress thing anymore. I'm probably more proud of that scene than the entire battle at the end. Just because it was just simple and it was clean. It was a two-hander scene. It was just writing and acting and just simple production.
And as the avatars advance, the big battle, starting to happen inside.
Yes.
Inside those characters.
Right.
And that's the investment on Spider or him and the chasm between them and all that.
Yeah.
I remember, and this is a funny story, but I remember after True Lies, we were, I used to stay in Jim's house as a pest guest. And I would be there for weeks on an end. We would watch Laserdisc and drink tequila and eat simple.
Oh, this is when you let the cat out.
Yes.
He was searching the hills of Malibu for hours looking for my cat, terrified. He came back. He said, Jim, the cat's gone. I went, oh, fuck him.
You said, whatever happens, don't let the cat out. And the cat went into the mountains and I went in for 2 hours and I started hearing coyotes and I came back and I waited scared and you came in at 4:10. I said, Jim, the cats came and you said, it.
But why is it funny? He tells the same story and it's so much
the accent. But the thing that I remember, and this is what you're saying. We after True Lies, you said I'm going to look for something simple, something that is basic human that I can execute without much complication. And I gave you The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers, and I recommended this and that, and then
I did Titanic.
You did. I'm going to do a love story next time. Oh, great! It happens on the Titanic.
That's how I pitched it, by the way. I went in with this beautiful painting. It was the centerfold of this book of illustrations of Titanic. Book's called the Illustrated History of Titanic. And it's a centerfold double truck, beautiful painting of the ship sinking and the flares going off and all the lights reflected in the water. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's grand. It's tragic. I went in, I put it on Peter Chernon's coffee table at 20th Century Fox. And I said, Romeo and Juliet on that. 5 words. $120 million right here. It worked.
About 20 million per word. A little over that. But
oh yeah, we did go over budget, but
now
all is forgiven in success.
All's well that ends well.
Yeah, right.
But as you move forward with the mythology, and I think this is very few full-blown expansive mythologies created by an American filmmaker exist that don't come from a source that is extraneous to the filmmaker. I can think of very, very few, certainly George
Lucas. Yeah.
And I think that for you, this world is now real. Yeah. And what you know about it and the culture and the music and the language is now almost like an alternate world that you live in.
Yeah, I'm comfortable within that world. I think, my goal was to do, with the sequels, my goal was to do what Tolkien did after The Hobbit, which is to create a trilogy. And so, I figured it's just, I had to write the novel too, in a way, you know what I mean? So I brought in help. I got 4 other screenwriters to work with me to break the story and so on. And we treated it like a writing room. We actually broke story across 3 sequels. Then I wound up going completely rogue and taking the first sequel and breaking it into 2 movies. And those 2 movies became The Way of Water and Fire and Ash. So we haven't even gotten to part 2 and 3 of the trilogy yet. And we may never, I don't know. It depends, it depends on how we do with this film. And everybody kind of, no brainer. It's not, trust me, because with the marketplace the way it is right now, that 30% drop from pre-COVID times, that could be our margin, and it is a business. So my fingers are crossed that I do get to tell those stories, but there's no guarantees.
There is a part of you that is fascinated by marine biology. Is one of the things we bonded on, because I also, as a kid, wanted to be a marine biologist, right. Explorer.
That's why I make so much fun of the marine biologist in the movie. I'm the marine biologist. Yeah. Check.
But there is a beauty to presenting a world that has no entropy in certain areas, that is pristine.
Yeah.
And that is something that actually reconnects you with real things in the real world.
It's interesting that, you hear accounts from the 15 and 1600s when European ships first came to the Americas and how they described the marine life. There are islands in the Caribbean where they said you could walk to shore on the backs of the sea turtles. It was like, we live in a highly shifted baseline. What we consider pristine and beautiful now is a 10th of what it was before we showed up, and it's 10 times what it's going to be 100 years from now. And so, but the decline is happening so slowly. It's like, the metaphor of boiling the frog. It's happening so slowly we don't react. And so, these movies are hopefully my hope is that they reconnect us with nature in a way that it used to be, and we can imagine it that way. And I think more importantly, reconnects us as audience members with the way we viewed nature purely when we were a kid. And we loved animals. And we just, I can't speak for everybody, but I think most kids are very comfortable in nature, attracted to it, and would love to spend all day there. And we're losing that. And we're losing, the more urbanized we become, the more technologized we become, we're losing it. And then when we see something like an Avatar movie, it creates a longing or something that's almost a memory in a way.
And emotion. I think that
it's
more and more we are afraid of emotion. And I think the first duty of film is to recuperate the emotion, because we live in a culture that either scorns it or refutes it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's at the core of, I know as a human, as a friend, and as a director, to foster emotion.
Yeah.
And I want to close because they raise the sign. Somebody asked me, well, what a director does? And I said, well, a director ideally is like the force of gravity. You may notice when he's there, but you will certainly notice when he's not there. Or if there's no director, everything floats. And I want to say, you are one of my dearest friends. You're one of my most admired directors, and you are one of the strongest force of gravity I know. And thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.